for my vlog one, I had an international student who went to high school in Dubai, and his name was Shamik, and he's a friend of a friend who ended up actually living in the same apartment complex as I do. So we just met in our apartment complex commonplace, which actually worked out very for both of us and made us feel a little bit more comfortable. And going in, I was very nervous, obviously, just with the communication issues and just meeting someone like this for the first time. But it actually turned out pretty well. Our conversation really flowed, and I basically just asked him a bunch of questions, and he wanted to know more about me, and it just felt really comfortable overall, not in any sense like an interview, just getting to know each other. So I asked him just a couple questions about his high school experience, and I told him about mine, and so basically I asked him generally how big was his class. So he said he had 15 to 20 kids per class, and there's about 50 people in his whole grade, and which I can relate to because I went to a small school um, where we had 15 to 20 kids, and I had about 60 people in my grade. And we also, both Shamik and I had 4 years requirement of high school, and we both graduated when we were 18. So that was really relatable, which I found really interesting that he had a small school as I did. So I asked him about his subjects in school, and if they were the same as mine, like I took math, English, then we had, and science, and we had an option of taking art and music and extracurriculars like that. And he said that they were only allowed to take 6 classes each year. And for the last 2 years of high school, those classes were actually at college level. So the option to choose the college level classes, such as he took psychology, business, French, and environmental studies, which compared to me, for our last 2 years, we could choose our classes, but they weren't college level. They didn't offer AP at my class, at my school, which I feel just kind of set me back. And definitely, if AP was offered, it could have prepared me a little bit more for college. Um, and he also said that he did enjoy his classes, and even though they were difficult, he did enjoy them, and his favorite was business. Um, I also asked him if he was prepared for college, and he said he doesn't feel like he was prepared because um, just like in general, like obviously going from where he lived to now is obviously a different environment, so it was a weird transition for him. And in terms of classes and the education, he says that they didn't have a lot of random classes like they do now, like such as ISS and IAH and all those college requirement courses, which he felt were not necessary. And I asked him if it was a difficult transition coming to the US, and he said it wasn't that hard, but it was just getting used to living alone, which obviously everyone can relate to, going from living with your parents to living alone. So we actually had a lot more in common than I thought. And he also mentioned that Dubai isn't a diverse place, um, which is much different than my experience because I went to a school that was diverse, and so I was definitely used to it coming to college. And he said that coming here wasn't much of a shock because he did go to a British school and was surrounded by Americans. And I also asked him about his relationship with teachers, and he said he did always talk to the teachers, but it wasn't like a close relationship, which we had in my school, like close relationships to our teachers where we could talk to them about anything or go to them after classes or even after school we could meet or before school. Like they were always very open. So that was definitely different when they just saw them as teachers and not much more. Um, I also asked him about the technology being used, and he said that they use a lot more technology there, as in, not that they're more technological advanced, but they do, like, here we do use chalkboards and whiteboards all the time, while there it's basically all computer based, which I thought was really interesting. And I asked him if he had any textbooks or assigned readings, and he said that he did have a lot of reading for classes and that his homework was both online and in paper, which is completely the same here in our culture. And then I asked him about the dynamic of the class, such as working in teams or small groups, and he said that they definitely did work in teams and groups and group projects all the time, which is the same as we do in the US. I also asked him a little bit more of like general questions just to get to know each other, such as like, does he have time to study a lot and then also free time, or is it all studying and no free time? And he says that when I got to the college level courses, it definitely was all studying and um, no free time, which is definitely a little bit of a difference from my experience in high school because I definitely did have a lot of free time, but also did study at the same time. Um, we also talked about sports, like he played soccer and they also had rugby and stuff. So they had definitely sports and extracurriculars, but just different types of sports and stuff. And we talked about food, such as cafeteria or if he ate out. And he said for the last 2 years that you could eat out and drive somewhere out of school, which was the exact same for me. I had 2 years out of 2 years into your last 2 years of high school, you could go out of school and get your own food. And the food he ate was basically the same. He said he ate a lot of Subway and pizza, and the same he does here. But when he goes home, his mom would cook him like rice, bread, and meat, which is definitely different from here now that we have to cook on our own. Just looking back from what I learned in class and comparing it to this situation of meeting him, when I came to college, it was already so nerve wracking, and I didn't even consider to think about how I would feel if I came to a completely different country and as well as coming to college within that. And Shama got to deal with communication aspects of class as well, like we how we talked about in class, like culture discontinuity is a mismatch between communication norms and home culture and school culture. So he had to try to find like a happy medium of when to speak English and when to speak his native language. I definitely realized many things like I will now use like as we talked in class the ethno-relativism approach as we talked about in um, having my own culture, but now I add new knowledge of other cultures around me and make more of an effort to make those in my class from another country feel a lot more comfortable. And I just realized that in terms of my own culture, we waste a lot more time compared to his. In terms of instead of studying, we use our time elsewhere. Sometimes we can be lazy and we spend so much time trying to get out of doing homework or studying that by the time we finally get to it, we could have already been done. And I did notice that in our culture, we develop closer relationships with teachers, which I feel is a good thing because when we will then feel more comfortable in class and it always gives someone to look up to and therefore will make us want to do better and become just like them. And another thing that I noticed is we always set goals for ourselves, and each time we achieve our goals, we set new ones. And this is also can sometimes take us away from life, and we don't know how to relax a lot, and um, we have a tough time finding a balance between the two. But compared to me and Shamik's culture, we definitely had a similar experience. It was definitely a shock because I was not expecting that. I was expecting he's across from a different world, so we had completely different worlds, but we definitely found a common ground overall in our education system and our overall experience. There was definitely a few slight differences, but overall, there was more similarities than differences in this whole interaction together. So, thank you.